Hey everyone, I need some advice. I'm 34, and my wife, Emily, is 32. We've been married for 6 years, and for the most part, it's been wonderful. We met at a mutual friend's party, hit it off right away, and the rest is history. We bought a nice house in a quiet neighborhood, both have decent jobs, and until recently, everything seemed perfect. But now, I feel like my world is falling apart, and I don't know what to do. For the last year, Emily and I have been talking about starting a family. We both agreed it was time. So when Emily told me she was pregnant a few weeks ago, I should have been ecstatic. But instead, I felt a cold sensation in my stomach. You see, Emily and I hadn't been intimate for over 6 months. She confirmed it with several home tests and even went to the doctor to get it checked out. She is definitely pregnant. I didn't want to believe it at first. I didn't try. We just had a dry spell, and I thought that was normal. We both have busy schedules, and sometimes we just don't have the energy. But now, all these little things are starting to add up, and I can't shake the feeling that something is seriously wrong. Emily works in marketing at a large firm in the city center. She has always been focused on her career, but she loves children and has always talked about having a big family. About a year ago, she started working on a big project with a new client. She spent many nights in the office, and I supported her. I get it. Sometimes you have to put in extra hours to succeed. But then, she started behaving differently. She would come home and go straight to the shower. She would get text messages late at night and say it was work. I didn't think much of it because, frankly, I trust her. I never thought she would cheat on me. But now, looking back, I feel like such an idiot. One night, a few months ago, I decided to surprise her at work. I brought her favorite takeout and thought we could have a little dinner date in her office. When I got there, her assistant looked surprised and said Emily had left early. I tried calling her, but she didn't pick up. I drove home, and there she was, sitting on the couch, looking guilty as hell. She said she felt sick and came home early, but something about the whole situation felt off. I let it go because I didn't want to seem paranoid. But now, I wish I'd pressed her on it. Last weekend, I found out the truth, and it shattered me. Emily was out with her friends, or at least that's what she told me. I was cleaning up the house and found her phone on the kitchen counter. It kept buzzing with messages. I don't usually invade her privacy, but my gut told me to check. And there it was, a string of messages from someone named Chris. Chris is her new client, the one she's been spending all those late nights with. The messages were explicit, talking about how they couldn't wait to be together again, how much they missed each other, and then some that I can't even bring myself to repeat. I felt like throwing up. My hands were shaking, and I didn't know what to do. I confronted her when she got home. She looked at me with this blank expression like she was caught but didn't know how to react. I asked her straight up if she was cheating on me with Chris. She denied it at first, but then I showed her the messages. She broke down crying, saying it was a mistake, that she never meant for it to happen, that it just sort of did. She said she loved me and wanted to make things work, but how could I believe her? I asked her about the baby. If she's pregnant and we haven't been intimate, it doesn't take a genius to figure out what's going on. She swore it was mine, said they only slept together a couple of times and used protection. But how can I trust anything she says now? I'm lost, guys. I don't know if I should stay and try to work things out, or if I should cut my losses and leave. I feel like my whole life is falling apart, and I don't know where to turn. I spent the night at my brother's place after that. I couldn't bear to be in the same house as her. My brother Mike, he's a good guy. Always been there for me. He listened to everything and said I should get a paternity test, no matter what. He's right, of course, but it feels so surreal. How did my life get to this point? I'm back home now, but things are tense. Emily keeps trying to talk to me, to apologize, to explain, but I can't look at her without seeing those messages, without imagining her with Chris. We're sleeping in separate rooms, and every time I see her, I feel this mix of anger and sadness. I loved her so much, and she betrayed me in the worst possible way. I've made an appointment to see a therapist next week. I don't know if it'll help, but I need to talk to someone. I can't keep this bottled up inside, and I've scheduled a consultation with a lawyer, just in case. I don't want to make any rash decisions, but I need to know my options. To those of you who've been through something similar, how did you cope? How did you decide whether to stay or go? I feel like I'm drowning here, and I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to believe her, to forgive her, and move on. But another part of me is screaming that I deserve better, that I can't trust her again. I keep thinking about all the little things I overlooked, all the signs I missed. The late nights, the secretive texts, the way she'd pull away from me. I feel like such an idiot. And now, with this baby on the way, everything is even more complicated. If it's mine, I want to be there for my child. I want to be a good father. But if it's not, I don't even know. Emily suggested we go to couples therapy. Maybe it'll help, but right now, I can't even stand to be in the same room with her for more than a few minutes. Every time I look at her, I see betrayal. I see the life we built together crumbling into pieces. I'm sorry if this is all over the place. My mind is a mess, and I'm just trying to make sense of everything. Any advice would be appreciated. How do you rebuild trust after something like this? Is it even possible? Or am I just fooling myself thinking we can fix this? I'll keep you all updated. Thanks for listening. I just needed to get this off my chest. 1 week later, hey everyone, it's been a week since my last post, and things have only gotten more complicated. Emily and I had our first couples therapy session yesterday, and it was intense, to say the least. The therapist tried to get us to talk about our feelings and what led to this point, but every time Emily started to speak, I just felt this wave of anger and betrayal wash over me. Emily admitted in therapy that she had been feeling neglected because of our busy schedules. She said that Chris was just there, showing her the attention she felt she was missing at home. I felt a mix of guilt and rage. Guilty because maybe I wasn't giving her enough attention, but rage because she chose to cheat instead of talking to me about it. Our therapist suggested we take some time apart to think about what we really want. Emily is staying with her sister for a few days, and I'm here alone, trying to figure out my next steps. I decided to go ahead with the paternity test. It's scheduled for next week, and I'm trying to prepare myself for whatever the outcome might be. Part of me is hoping the baby is mine, because despite everything, I still want a family. But another part of me is terrified of the idea of raising a child in a broken home. Last night, I went through some old photos and messages between Emily and me. I wanted to remind myself of the good times, to see if there was anything left worth fighting for. It's so hard to reconcile the woman I married with the one who betrayed me. How did we get here? When did we stop being a team? I'm still seeing my therapist individually, and she's been helping me work through my feelings. She says it's important to take things one day at a time, to not rush any decisions, but it's hard when every day feels like a new emotional roller coaster. My friends and family have been supportive, but they're also biased. They all tell me I should leave Emily, that I deserve better, and maybe they're right, but it's not that simple. We have 6 years of history together, and despite everything, I still love her. Or maybe I love the idea of her, the person I thought she was. Emily has been texting me saying she misses me and wants to come home. She's been apologizing constantly, saying she's willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. But can things ever be right again? Can we really rebuild what's been broken? I keep thinking about the future. If I stay with Emily, can I ever? Emily came back home a few days ago. We had another couples therapy session, and this time it was even more intense. Our therapist encouraged us to be completely honest with each other, no matter how much it hurt. Emily talked about how she felt neglected and how she turned to Chris for comfort and validation. Hearing her say it out loud made my stomach turn, but I knew she was just trying to be honest. I admitted that I had been so focused on work and other things that I might have taken her for granted. I guess part of me thought our relationship was strong enough to handle anything without much effort. But clearly, I was wrong. The therapist suggested we set up a schedule for spending more quality time together and really listening to each other's needs. Emily has been trying really hard to make things right. She's constantly apologizing, and she's even offered to quit her job if it means saving our marriage. I told her that wasn't necessary, but I appreciated the gesture. She also said she's cut all contact with Chris and blocked his number. I want to believe her, but the trust is just not there right now. The paternity test results are due back in a few days. I've been trying to mentally prepare myself for both outcomes, but it's tough. If the baby is mine, I want to be there for my child. I want to try and build a life for us, even if it's difficult. But if the baby isn't mine, I don't know if I can stay with Emily. I don't know if I could raise a child that's a constant reminder of her betrayal. Last night, Emily and I had a long talk. It was the most honest conversation we've had since all this started. She told me she's scared too. She's scared I'll never be able to forgive her, that we'll never be able to rebuild our marriage. I told her I'm scared of that too, but I also told her that part of me still loves her and wants to try. We agreed to take it one day at a time and see where things go. To those of you who've been through similar situations, how did you rebuild trust? How did you move forward? I keep thinking about all the little things I missed, all the signs I ignored. It's hard not to beat myself up over it, and it's hard to look at Emily without seeing Chris. I want to get past this, but I don't know how. I've been spending a lot of time with my brother Mike. He's been my rock through all this. He's a great listener, and he doesn't judge me for still wanting to try with Emily. He keeps telling me to focus on what I want and not what everyone else thinks I should do. It's good advice, but easier said than done. Work has been a good distraction. I've been throwing myself into my projects, trying to keep my mind off everything that's going on at home. But even at work, I find myself zoning out, thinking about what the future holds. My coworkers have noticed I'm not myself, but I haven't told them what's going on. I don't want to be the subject of office gossip on top of everything else. Yesterday, Emily and I decided to go out for dinner. It was the first time we'd done something normal together since this whole mess started. We went to our favorite restaurant, and for a little while it felt like old times. We talked, laughed a little, and for a moment I almost forgot about everything. But then, out of nowhere, she started crying. She said she felt guilty for enjoying herself when she'd hurt me so much. I didn't know what to say, so I just held her hand and told her we'll get through this somehow. We've been trying to follow the therapist's advice and spend more quality time together. We've started going for walks in the evening, talking about our days, and trying to reconnect. It's awkward at times, but I think it's helping, even if just a little. I've also started writing in a journal. The therapist suggested it as a way to process my feelings. At first I felt silly doing it, but it's been surprisingly therapeutic. I write about my fears, my hopes, my anger, and my sadness. It's a way to get everything out without feeling like I'm burdening anyone else. The hardest part is still the nights. Lying in bed, trying to sleep, my mind races with all the what-ifs. What if the baby isn't mine? What if Emily cheats again? What if I can never forgive her? The nights are the worst because there's nothing to distract me from my thoughts. Emily has been making an effort to show me she's committed to fixing our marriage. She leaves little notes for me in the morning, telling me she loves me and is grateful for another chance. She's been cooking my favorite meals, planning little date nights at home, and trying to show me that she's in this for the long haul. I appreciate it, but there's still a wall between us. I keep thinking about what life will be like if we can't make this work. I don't want to start over, but I also don't want to be in a marriage where I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering if she's being faithful. I want to trust her again, but I don't know how to get there. To anyone reading this who's been through something similar, how did you rebuild trust? How did you know if it was worth it to stay? I feel like I'm stuck in limbo, unable to move forward but too scared to let go. I'm trying to stay hopeful, to believe that we can get through this. But it's hard. Every day is a struggle, and I'm exhausted. I keep reminding myself to take it one day at a time, but some days, even that feels impossible. Emily admitted in therapy that she had been feeling neglected because of our busy schedules. She said that Chris was just there, showing her the attention she felt she was missing at home. I felt a mix of guilt and rage. Guilty because maybe I wasn't giving her enough attention, but rage because she chose to cheat instead of talking to me about it. Our therapist suggested we take some time apart to think about what we really want. Emily is staying with her sister for a few days, and I'm here alone trying to figure out my next steps. I've read through all your comments and messages, and I appreciate the support and advice. It's comforting to know I'm not alone in this, even if it's just strangers on the internet. I decided to go ahead with the paternity test. It's scheduled for next week, and I'm trying to prepare myself for whatever the outcome might be. Part of me is hoping the baby is mine because, despite everything, I still want a family. But another part of me is terrified of the idea of raising a child in a broken home. Last night I went through some old photos and messages between Emily and me. I wanted to remind myself of the good times, to see if there was anything left worth fighting for. It's so hard to reconcile the woman I married with the one who betrayed me. How did we get here? When did we stop being a team? I'm still seeing my therapist individually, and she's been helping me work through my feelings. She says it's important to take things one day at a time, to not rush any decisions. But it's hard when every day feels like a new emotional roller coaster. My friends and family have been supportive, but they're also biased. They all tell me I should leave Emily, that I deserve better. And maybe they're right, but it's not that simple. We have 6 years of history together, and despite everything, I still love her. Or maybe I love the idea of her, the person I thought she was. Emily has been texting me, saying she misses me and wants to come home. She's been apologizing constantly, saying she's willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. But can things ever be right again? Can we really rebuild what's been broken? I keep thinking about the future. If I stay with Emily, can I ever trust her again? Will I always be wondering if she's seeing someone else? And if I leave, will I regret it? Will I miss the life we had, even if it was built on lies? I know there's no easy answer. I just have to take it one step at a time and hope that eventually things will become clearer. Right now, I'm focusing on getting through each day, trying to find some semblance of normalcy in the chaos. The paternity test results finally came in, and I've been trying to process everything. But before I get into that, let me give you a bit more context on what's been happening. Emily and I had another couples therapy session last week. It was just as intense as the previous ones. The therapist asked us to talk about our fears and hopes for the future. Emily said she was terrified of losing me, of our marriage falling apart completely. She said she regrets everything and wants to do whatever it takes to rebuild our relationship. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, and for a moment I felt a glimmer of hope. But then it was my turn to speak. I told Emily that I was afraid of never being able to trust her again. I was afraid of the constant doubt, the nagging feeling that she might cheat again. I told her that I wanted to believe we could get through this, but I wasn't sure if that was possible. The therapist encouraged us to keep talking, to keep being honest with each other, no matter how painful it might be. After the session, Emily went back to her sister's place and I went home alone. I spent the evening reading through old messages between us, looking at photos from happier times. It felt like I was mourning the loss of something precious, something that could never be fully regained. The next day I decided to visit my parents. I needed their perspective, their wisdom. My mom hugged me tightly as soon as I walked through the door, and my dad patted me on the back, a silent gesture of support. We sat down in the living room, and I poured out everything. Emily's betrayal, the therapy sessions, the upcoming paternity test results. They listened patiently, and when I was done, my mom looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Sometimes love means letting go," she said softly. "You deserve to be happy, and you deserve someone who will be loyal to you. But only you can decide if you're willing to give Emily another chance." My dad nodded in agreement. "Whatever you choose, we'll support you. Just remember to take care of yourself, son." I left their house feeling a bit lighter, but still unsure of what to do. That night I wrote in my journal, trying to sort through my emotions. I kept coming back to the same question. Can I ever truly forgive Emily? A few days later, I got a call from the lab. The paternity test results were in. I felt a lump in my throat as I answered the phone, my heart pounding. The voice on the other end was calm and professional, but the words hit me like a ton of bricks. "The test confirms that you are not the biological father." I don't remember much of the conversation after that. I thanked the person on the phone, hung up, and sat there in stunned silence. It felt like the final nail in the coffin of my marriage. How could I raise a child that wasn't mine? A constant reminder of Emily's betrayal. I called Mike, my brother, and told him the news. He came over right away, and we sat on the back porch talking for hours. He didn't try to offer solutions or tell me what to do. He just listened, and that was exactly what I needed. The next day, Emily and I had another therapy session scheduled. I didn't know how I was going to face her, how I was going to tell her about the test results. But I knew it had to be done. I arrived at the therapist's office early, my stomach in knots. Emily walked in a few minutes later, looking anxious. We sat down, and the therapist asked how we were feeling. I took a deep breath and looked at Emily. "The paternity test results came back," I said quietly. "The baby isn't mine." Emily's face crumpled, and she started sobbing. "I'm so sorry," she choked out. "I never meant for this to happen. I love you, and I want to make this right." I felt a surge of anger and sadness, but I tried to stay calm. "I know you're sorry, Emily, but this changes everything. I don't know if I can move past this. I don't know if I can raise a child that's a constant reminder of your betrayal." The therapist stepped in, guiding us through the conversation, helping us process our emotions. Emily kept apologizing, kept saying she wanted to fix things. But deep down, I knew that this was a wound that might never fully heal. After the session, I told Emily that I needed some time to think. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, and left with a heavy heart. I went home, sat on the couch, and stared at the wall, trying to figure out what to do next. Over the next few days, I talked to my friends and family, weighing my options. Some of them said I should leave Emily, that I deserved better. Others said that if I still loved her, I should try to make it work. But in the end, the decision had to be mine. I decided to meet with Emily one last time. We went to a quiet park, sat on a bench, and talked. Really talked. No yelling, no accusations, just honest conversation. I told her how much she had hurt me, how betrayed I felt. She listened, tears in her eyes, and apologized again and again. "I love you, Emily," I said finally. "But I don't think I can move past this. I don't think I can trust you again, and I can't raise a child that isn't mine. I'm sorry." She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "Please don't do this," she pleaded. "We can make it work. I'll do anything." But I knew in my heart that it was over. I stood up, gave her one last hug, and walked away, tears streaming down my face. The next few weeks were a blur of legal paperwork and difficult conversations. Emily moved out, and we started the process of ending our marriage. It was painful, but I knew it was the right decision for both of us. I leaned on my family and friends for support, and they were there for me every step of the way. Mike, especially, was a constant presence, always ready with a listening ear and a comforting word. I don't know what I would have done without him. Now, a few months later, I'm starting to find a new sense of normalcy. I'm still seeing my therapist, still writing in my journal. It's a slow process, but I'm healing. I've started dating again, cautiously, and I'm trying to stay open to the possibility of finding love again. Looking back, I realize that this experience has made me stronger. It's taught me a lot about myself, about what I want and need in a relationship. And it's shown me that I have an incredible support system of friends and family who love me unconditionally. To anyone out there going through something similar, know that you're not alone. It's okay to feel lost and hurt and angry. But it's also okay to move on, to find happiness again. Take it one day at a time and trust that things will get better. Thank you all for being there for me, for listening to my story, and for offering your support and advice. It's been a rough journey, but I'm finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I wish you all the best in your own journeys, wherever they may lead. Hey everyone, I'm back with another update. I never thought I'd be here sharing my life with strangers on the internet, but your support has been a lifeline. So here's what's been happening since my last post. The paternity test results came back confirming that the baby isn't mine. I spent days grappling with the news, feeling every emotion from anger to sadness to betrayal. I felt like my life was a bad soap opera, and I was just waiting for the next dramatic twist. But life doesn't stop for anyone, and I had to figure out my next steps. After our last therapy session, Emily moved out and went to stay with her sister. I took some time off work, needing space to process everything. My boss was understanding, and my colleagues covered for me. I spent a lot of time at my brother Mike's place, talking things through and trying to clear my head. One night, Mike and I were sitting on his porch, sipping beers and watching the stars. He turned to me and said, "You know, sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that shape us the most. Whatever you decide, just make sure it's what you really want." His words stuck with me. I knew I had to make a decision about my future with Emily, but I also needed to figure out what I wanted for myself. So I started doing things that made me happy, taking long hikes, reading books I'd always meant to read, even picking up my old guitar and strumming away my frustrations. Emily kept reaching out, sending texts and leaving voicemails. She wanted to meet, to talk things through, but I wasn't ready. I needed to find my own clarity before I could face her again. I knew she was hurting too, but I had to prioritize my own healing. I spent a lot of time with my therapist, exploring my feelings and trying to understand what I needed to move forward. She suggested I write a letter to Emily, not to send, but to get my thoughts out on paper. It sounded like a good idea, so one evening I sat down and wrote everything I'd been holding inside. I wrote about the pain of her betrayal, the shattered trust, and the love that still lingered despite everything. I wrote about my hopes and fears, my anger and sadness. By the time I was done, I felt a strange sense of relief. It didn't fix anything, but it helped me see things more clearly. Eventually, I agreed to meet Emily. We chose a neutral place, a quiet park where we could talk without interruptions. She arrived looking tired and anxious, and I could tell she'd been crying. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice trembling. I nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. "We need to talk, Emily. We need to figure out where we go from here." We sat down on a bench, and she started apologizing again, tears streaming down her face. "I know I've hurt you, and I hate myself for it. I wish I could take it all back, but I can't. All I can do is try to make things right." I listened, feeling a mix of empathy and frustration. "I know you're sorry, but this isn't something that can just be fixed with an apology. You betrayed my trust, and I don't know if I can ever get past that." She wiped her tears and took a deep breath. "I understand, but I still love you, and I want to fight for us. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, but I need to know if you're willing to try too." I looked at her. seeing the woman I had fallen in love with and the woman who had broken my heart. "I don't know, Emily. I really don't know. I need time to figure things out." We talked for a while longer, about our feelings, our fears, and what the future might hold. By the end of the conversation, we both agreed to take a break, to give each other space to heal and think. It wasn't a definitive answer, but it was a step in the right direction. In the following weeks, I focused on myself. I reconnected with old friends, started going to the gym again, and even took a weekend trip to clear my mind. I needed to remember who I was outside of my marriage, to find my own strength and identity. Emily and I continued our therapy sessions, both individually and together. The therapist helped us navigate the complex emotions we were dealing with, but she also reminded us that healing takes time. Some days were better than others, and there were moments when I felt a glimmer of hope that we might be able to rebuild. One day, Emily called me and asked if we could meet. She sounded different, more composed. I agreed, and we met at a small cafe. She looked nervous but determined. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, "and I realized that I need to take responsibility for my actions, not just to you, but to myself. I've started seeing a therapist on my own, and it's helped me understand why I did what I did. It doesn't excuse my behavior, but I want you to know that I'm working on myself." I appreciated her honesty, and it made me see that she was genuinely trying to change. "That's good, Emily. I'm glad you're taking steps to heal. But we still have a long way to go, and I'm not sure if we'll ever get back to what we had." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know, but I hope we can at least try." As we talked, I felt a sense of closure beginning to form. We weren't out of the woods yet, but we were starting to understand each other's pain and the work that lay ahead. It wasn't going to be easy, but for the first time, I felt like we might have a chance. Over the next few months, we continued to take things one day at a time. We went on dates, slowly rebuilding our connection. There were setbacks, moments when the past would resurface and the pain would feel fresh again. But we kept talking, kept trying to understand each other. Emily moved back in, and we set new boundaries and expectations. We agreed to be completely honest with each other, no matter how difficult it might be. Trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight, but we were both committed to trying. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emily turned to me and said, "I know we still have a lot of work to do, but I'm grateful for every day we get to spend together. Thank you for giving us another chance." I squeezed her hand, feeling a mix of emotions. "It's not easy, but I'm grateful too. Let's just keep taking it one step at a time." Life started to feel normal again, or at least a new version of normal. We focused on the present, on rebuilding our relationship and finding joy in the small moments. It wasn't perfect, and there were days when the weight of the past felt heavy, but we were learning to carry it together. We continued our therapy sessions, both individually and as a couple. The therapist guided us through the healing process, helping us navigate the ups and downs. It wasn't a linear journey, and there were times when it felt like we were taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But we kept moving, kept trying. The baby was born a few months later. Emily had decided to keep the child, and we had many discussions about what that would mean for us. I knew it would be a constant reminder of her betrayal, but I also saw it as an opportunity to show compassion and strength. When the baby was born, I was there with Emily. It was a surreal experience, holding a child that wasn't mine by blood, but was still connected to me in a complicated way. I felt a mix of emotions: sadness, hope, fear. But most of all, I felt a sense of acceptance. We named the baby Lucas. Emily and I had talked about names during happier times, and it felt right to choose something that represented a new beginning. I wasn't sure what my role would be in Lucas's life, but I knew I wanted to be there, to support Emily and be a positive influence. Our families were supportive, though it took time for everyone to adjust to the new reality. My parents especially were understanding and offered their unconditional love. They welcomed Lucas with open arms, seeing him as a part of our family despite the circumstances. Mike, my brother, continued to be my rock. He was there for me through every step, offering advice and a listening ear. He even joked about being the cool uncle to Lucas, helping to lighten the mood during tough times. Emily and I found a rhythm, navigating the complexities of our new life. It wasn't perfect, and there were still moments of doubt and pain. But we were building something new, something stronger. We were learning to forgive, to trust, and to love again. I continued to focus on my own healing, setting goals for myself and finding joy in the things I loved. I took up painting, something I'd always wanted to try, and found it incredibly therapeutic. Emily supported me, encouraging me to pursue my passions and find my own path. Our relationship was evolving, no longer defined by the past, but by the choices we made each day. We celebrated small victories, like going a week without a major argument or having a heartfelt conversation without tears. It wasn't easy, but it was progress. One day, as we were walking through the park with Lucas, Emily turned to me and said, "I know we've been through a lot, but I'm so grateful for this second chance. I love you, and I'm committed to making this work." I looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. "I love you too, Emily. Let's keep moving forward, one step at a time." And so we continue our journey, uncertain of what the future holds, but committed to facing it together. It's not a fairy tale ending, but it's our story, and it's filled with hope, resilience, and love. Thank you all for being there for me, for listening to my story, and for offering your support and advice. Your words have meant more than you know. This isn't the end, but a new beginning. I wish you all the best in your own journeys, wherever they may lead.